sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the vast expanse of golden wheat. It was the perfect evening for a farmer to wind down after a hard day's work. But for Nathan Reed, the day was only beginning. He had heard whispers carried on the cool breeze that stirred the leaves about a band of bandits that was lurking in the area, looking for easy prey. The air crackled with unease, and Nathan could feel it tugging at the edges of his mind. He'd spent years tending to his land, pouring his heart and soul into every inch, and he wouldn't let anyone jeopardize that. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow across the field, Nathan rolled up his sleeves and tightened his grip on the old farming tool he kept close. He wouldn't let fear guide him. Instead, he would take action. As night settled in, the world around him fell silent. The chirp of crickets filled the air, a stark contrast to the racing thoughts in his head. There was a rustle in the bushes nearby. His heart thundered in his chest. He wasn't going to wait for trouble to find him. He would confront it first. Just across the ridge, footsteps shifted over the dry leaves. The bandits had come. It didn't take long for Nathan to spot them, 3 figures cloaked in darkness, hidden slightly by the night and the shadows of the trees. They moved with purpose, fueled by their greed, their eyes scanning the land hungrily. Nathan squinted against the shadows, weighing his options. He knew these men were ruthless, operating under the cover of night, stealing from honest farmers like him. As they moved closer, he could hear their gruff voices. "Let's just grab what we can carry and go," one grunted, clearly the leader. "Yeah, easy money," another laughed mockingly. The sound sent a chill down Nathan's spine, but it also ignited a fire within him. He had to outsmart them. He had to protect what was rightfully his. Sneaking back to his barn, he gathered supplies: a sturdy rope, a few barrels, and some old, worn-out tools. He had a plan, one that would turn the tables on the would-be thieves. With the darkness thickening around him, Nathan crept to a vantage point overlooking a narrow path that led to his crops. He paced himself, his heart steadying as he focused on the strategy at hand. It was almost poetic, really. A farmer up against men who thought they could rob him of the very fruits of his labor. When the bandits finally approached, his heart raced not with fear but with determination. "Just a few more steps," he whispered to himself, the excitement tingling in his gut. Then, as they reached the first row of crops, Nathan launched his plan into action. He rolled 2 barrels into the darkness, creating a barrier to block their path. The night's silence shattered with a loud crash. Startled, the bandits turned, eyes wide in shock. Before they could react, Nathan dashed out from his hiding spot, voice booming like thunder. The bandits froze, teeth gritted, eyes narrowing. They hadn't expected a confrontation, not from an old farmer. Laughter rippled through the group, hostility mixing with their disbelief. But Nathan stood firm, heart pounding, adrenaline surging through his veins. "Come on, fellas," he taunted. They charged towards him, anger flashing in their eyes, but Nathan had anticipated their move. With a swift kick, he sent the barrels rolling, creating chaos in their ranks. One bandit tripped, falling hard to the ground as dust exploded into the air around him. The others hesitated, caught off guard by Nathan's sudden burst of courage. In that moment of hesitation, Nathan seized the opportunity. He lunged, tossing the rope towards the closest bandit struck by uncertainty. It caught him by surprise, tangling around his legs. Nathan shouted, storming forward, muscles taut with resolve. The second bandit, undeterred, launched himself at Nathan, but years of farm work had forged strength in his arms. Nathan ducked and maneuvered, using the rope to pull him off balance, sending him crashing into a nearby fence. Wood splintered, and the air was filled with satisfying cracks that reverberated around them. All the while, Nathan felt fear ebb away, replaced by the thrill of the fight. He was defending his home, his way of life. Isn't that what every farmer did? The leader, realizing things were going awry, shouted for his men to regroup, but their plans had unraveled just as Nathan had foreseen. The bandits struggled with the chaos, fear flickering in their eyes. They were used to the quiet of the night, stealing in shadows, not standing and facing a man willing to fight. Nathan bellowed, confidence feeding his strength. He leveraged the terrain, maneuvering to get the high ground. The thrill of outthinking them fueled his every move. In that moment, he wasn't just a farmer. He was a warrior fighting for his land. Desperate, the bandits tried to break away, but Nathan was relentless. The echoes of their retreat rang through the vast fields, growing softer as they stumbled away from the confrontation. They had underestimated him, and now they were fleeing. The last bandit shoved against the leader, who was struggling to catch his breath. "Let's get out of here." With a furious yell, Nathan threw a stone, hitting the ground just in front of the retreating figures. Panic set in. Would they come back? Would they regroup? But for now, peace surged through Nathan as the figures disappeared into the foliage, swallowed wholly by the dark. Breathing heavily, Nathan stood still, the adrenaline coursing through him like a wild river. He surveyed the wreckage left behind, a fallen barrel, scattered debris from the fence, and the echoing stillness of the night. He had outsmarted them, not by sheer strength but by cunning and a fierce desire to protect everything he had cultivated. As dawn broke, washing the world in soft light, Nathan took a moment to reflect under the vast sky. The distinct taste of victory lingered on his tongue, although the reality of danger still loomed. He knew they could return, but he wouldn't let fear dominate his spirit. He slowly walked back to his home, a garden growing not just in the earth but within his heart, a garden of resilience and bravery. That day marked a turning point. Nathan began his preparations in earnest. He built a small lookout post and crafted makeshift alarms using old metal scraps, each clanging reminder a promise to safeguard his land. He gathered the other farmers in the area, sharing stories of protection and unity. Together, they fortified their homes, transformed into a community ready to defend against any threat. Some may consider it foolish to stand up against such danger, but to Nathan, it was a matter of principle. Fighting wasn't just about strength. It was about loyalty to one's home, to the sweat and toil that filled the pages of a farmer's story. Weeks passed, but the air remained thick with tension. Rumors of the bandits had spread, and Nathan waited with bated breath, always looking toward the horizon, always prepared. Time turned the once tranquil fields into a battleground of wits and determination. Word of Nathan's bravery spread, and neighboring farmers began to join forces. They took turns watching over one another, learning the land's secrets, honing their craft not just in farming but in vigilance. A daring spirit took over the community, each day a new chance to outsmart danger. Then one evening, as the sky turned into a canvas of deep oranges and purples, Nathan noticed movement at the ridge again. His heart raced, not with fear but with focus. The bandits were back, emboldened, driven by their desire for revenge. Only this time, they faced more than just Nathan Reed. The farmers gathered, their resolve unshakable. Nathan's heart swelled with pride as he looked at the faces surrounding him. These were not just neighbors. They were allies standing together, ready to defend their dreams. When the bandits approached, they were met not with surprise but with a united front. Nathan stepped forward and the air crackled with tension. The leader of the bandits glared, but fear burned in his eyes. He could sense the shift. They weren't facing just one farmer this time, but a determined community. The bandit leader sneered, desperation dripping from his voice. "Not just friends," Nathan countered, his voice steady. With that declaration, the battle began, not just of fists, but of will. Nathan had crafted a trap that utilized their own weaknesses against them, and as the confrontation unfolded, it became clear that the bandits were outmatched. Through grit and teamwork, they pushed back. Every farmer understood their role, every hand worked in sync. The bandits stumbled and faltered, realizing too late that underestimating the heart and spirit of a united community would be their ultimate downfall. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting its final rays over the hard-fought land, Nathan stood tall. The bandits fled once more, leaving behind the remnants of their failed endeavor, a stark reminder of the fight they started and the strength they had underestimated. With the bandits gone, Nathan and his friends reclaimed their land. They stood on the ridge side by side, proud of what they achieved, a new chapter rooted in bravery and resilience. In that moment, Nathan knew that victory wasn't merely about triumph over foes. It was about the bonds forged in battle, the spirits reunited under the banner of shared struggle and unwavering hope. Together, they would continue to work the land, each day a testament to what it meant to outsmart not just the bandits who threatened them, but the very fear that had once tried to corner them. The farmer had outsmarted the bandits, yes, but in doing so, he had sparked a fire within the community, a legacy that would endure, sowing seeds of courage and resilience for generations to come. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting layers of gold and fading orange over the sprawling fields of wheat. It was a serene evening, but for Nathan Reed, that stillness felt like a storm brewing in the distance. The air was thick with tension, charged with rumors that had been swirling through the town like uninvited guests. Bandits were on the prowl, and Nathan could feel their presence lingering like a shadow on the edge of his farm. As he stood at the wooden fence, gazing over his land, his heart raced with that familiar instinct, a primal urge to protect everything he had worked for. Years of toil had turned this land into a sanctuary, a place where dreams were sown alongside the crops. But now, lurking just beyond the fingertips of his golden wheat, danger waited. When night crept in, Nathan made his rounds, checking the locks on sheds and silently reinforcing the boundaries of his farm. He kept his father's old hunting rifle by the back door, but Nathan knew he couldn't rely on mere firearms. He had to think, he had to be smart. Then came the sounds. A rustle echoed through the bushes, followed by low voices that drifted on the night air. Fear gripped him, prickling his skin. There they were, 3 figures cloaked in darkness, approaching with intent. Bandits. Nathan held his breath, eyes narrowing as he watched them shift through his crops, greed practically radiating off them. "Grab what you can," whispered one, his voice a hiss. Just then, a spark flickered within Nathan. Anger surged to life where fear had settled, igniting his instincts. He knew this was his land, his livelihood, and he wouldn't let them take anything from him. As they drew near, Nathan crept back into the shadows, heart pounding, thoughts racing. It was time to show these men they had picked the wrong farmer. Rushing to the barn, Nathan gathered supplies with swift determination: rope, an old tarp, and a couple of sturdy barrels he used for rainwater. He carefully positioned them near the edge of his field where the bandits were headed. It was a risk, but he calculated the odds. He needed to outsmart them, not overpower them. With his heart thundering in his chest, he climbed up onto the roof of the barn, gaining a vantage point over the approaching threat. The moon illuminated the scene, casting long shadows that danced across the ground. He would be the hunter tonight, not the prey. As the bandits drew closer, a plan began to shape in Nathan's mind. He waited, holding his breath, eyes trained on the figures who thought they could steal from him. The first one stepped on a barrel and it rolled, crashing loudly against the ground. Surprise flickered in their eyes. Nathan seized the moment. He shouted, his voice ringing out like a warning bell. Startled, the bandits froze, glancing around to find the source. Nathan took a deep breath and kicked off his plan. He hurled a makeshift net, a simple tarp filled with old weights down from the roof. It tangled around the first bandit, sending him tumbling. Chaos erupted. The other 2 fumbled for their weapons, but Nathan was quicker. He jumped down, landing on a pile of hay, surprisingly graceful despite the adrenaline crashing through him. "You've made a mistake," he growled, adrenaline coursing through his veins. The bandits, caught off guard, stumbled over one another, panic setting in as they realized they were no match for the prepared farmer. Nathan lunged at the second man, using the rope expertly to bind his arms while he struggled. The bandit leader hesitated, but Nathan's words cut deeper than any blade. The 2 remaining bandits were scrambling now, realizing they'd underestimated both Nathan and the land they were on. With a swift movement born from years of hard work, Nathan yanked the rope tighter around the struggling bandit, securing him on the spot. "Let's make this simple," Nathan said, confidently pointing his rifle toward the remaining bandit. Caught between fear and desperation, the remaining bandit raised his hands. Okay. Nathan chuckled darkly, heart still racing. Not the plan. He motioned for the captured bandit, who was still trying to wriggle free. Panic flashed in the bandit's eyes, but Nathan stood firm, resolve hardening in him like steel. The situation had turned from threat to an opportunity, a chance for a lesson to be learned. 1 hour rolled into the next, tension hanging thick in the air as they awaited dawn. The captured bandit, tied securely to a post, shot nervous glances at Nathan, who sat calmly, rifle resting across his knees. "You know," Nathan finally said, breaking the silence, "you can be more than just a thief." The bandit looked at him, surprise flickering in his eyes. "I know it," Nathan responded, steel in his voice. "I've seen good people struggle and thrive." As dawn broke, bathing the land in warm light, Nathan felt a sense of victory wash over him, not just for capturing the bandits, but for inspiring change, even if it was in just one man. The remaining bandits shifted, breaking the silence. "I never thought of it that way. Better doesn't come by taking from others," Nathan replied, his voice calm yet firm. Just then, the sun crested the horizon, sending radiant beams over the fields. Nathan stood, surveying his land that had once felt threatened but now sang with the promise of a new day. The bandits had lost their advantage, as they were now surrounded by the very essence of what they had sought to destroy. "I'm going to let you go," Nathan decided, surprising himself more than anyone else. "But if I ever see you again on my land, I won't be so generous. Remember this moment." With that, he untied the bandit's wrists, watching him stumble away, unsure but alive with new insights. "Find a better path," Nathan called after him, his voice heavy with meaning yet hopeful. As the bandits fled into the distance, Nathan turned back toward the fields. The sun rose higher, a golden glow spreading across the landscape, revealing the hard work and dedication that filled every inch of the farm. The experience had shaken him, yes, but it had also solidified something important. He couldn't just stand and protect. He had to inspire change. He had fought not just with strength, but with his heart. Soon after, he gathered the other farmers in the community and shared the story of the night he had faced down bandits. He spoke about courage, unity, and the strength that came from working together. Farmers began to form a network, sharing resources and ideas, making their lives more secure, both physically and emotionally. They would watch over one another, aware that they weren't just individuals anymore. They were a community, a collective force ready to rise against fear, ready to stand strong against whatever threats may come. Weeks passed in the routine rhythm of farm life, but a shift in the air was palpable. The very winds seemed to whistle a song of resilience, a reminder that they would not be cowed. Nathan put more efforts into his crops, planting seeds of change along with the crops themselves. As time marched forward, Nathan felt the sting of the past fade. What had felt like a horror story transformed into a narrative of defiance. Those early evenings now hummed with community chatter and shared laughter, the darkness of the past eclipsed by the vibrancy of united spirits. One clear day, as the golden wheat swayed with the gentle breeze, Nathan glanced toward the horizon where the bandits had once lurked. He remembered the fear, the chaos, how close he had come to losing everything. Yet here he stood, proud of his land, proud of the people standing beside him. He had outsmarted not just the bandits, but the very idea of allowing fear to dictate his actions. With every seed sown, every conversation shared, they were writing a story of resilience, standing firm against those who believed they could take without consequence. And as the sun dipped low once more, painting the sky in rich hues, Nathan found comfort in knowing that he had not just defended his home. He had ignited a flame of hope, transforming fear into strength for himself and his community. The bandits had tried to corner the farmer, but instead he had turned the tables, forging a legend that would live on in the golden fields for years to come. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a canvas painted with deep oranges and purples. In the quiet of that fading light, Nathan Reed could feel it, the heavy tension in the air, a predator lurking just out of sight. Rumors had been swirling, whispers amongst the townspeople that an outlaw group was prowling the outskirts of their small community, targeting unsuspecting farmers. Nathan placed his hand on the wooden fence that bordered his sprawling wheat field, glancing over the rows of golden stalks that swayed gently in the passing breeze. It was a peaceful scene, but he felt a storm brewing. Years of hard work, sleepless nights spent weeding, planting, and harvesting it all felt at risk. As a farmer, your land was everything, and Nathan wasn't going to let anyone take that away. The sky darkened, and as twilight settled in, Nathan decided to take a walk around his property. He could hear the distant croak of frogs and the rustle of crickets beginning their nightly symphony. But beneath the natural sounds of the evening, Nathan felt another sound, a low, indistinct mumble. His heart raced. Bandits. They were coming. He slipped behind a cluster of trees, heart pounding in his chest as he squinted into the shadows. 3 figures emerged, cloaked in darkness, moving with purpose towards his crops. They looked almost like ghosts, shadows spilling through the field, eyes glinting with greed. Nathan held his breath, not from fear but from resolve. The leader, tall and imposing, waved his hand. "You know what to do. Grab the grain and let's get out." Nathan's mind whirled with thoughts. They thought they could just waltz in and take what was rightfully his. He had to act, and he had to act fast. Hiding behind a tree, he quickly developed a plan. Adrenaline coursed through his veins. This was not the end of his story. This was just the beginning. Silently, Nathan hustled back towards his barn. He grabbed lengths of rope, a few heavy barrels, and even an old net he used for fishing. His heart raced as he sorted through the tools, his mind churning with possibilities. He could outsmart them. He just needed to keep his wits about him. Creeping back to the edge of his field, he set the trap. He rolled 2 barrels toward the narrow spot between the crops and the strangely familiar dirt path leading into the woods. And then he picked up the net, draping it carefully over the barrels like a spider waiting for prey. With a steadying breath, he climbed onto the roof of the barn, the world sprawling beneath him. From there, he had an excellent view of the bandits, who remained unaware of the storm brewing just above them. They approached the barrels, laughter spilling from their lips, confidence radiating from their eyes. The leader shouted. Nathan's heart raced. Now was the moment. He peered over the edge, preparing himself. As soon as the bandits were close enough, he let his trap unfold. He yelled as he kicked the barrels with force. They rolled far faster than the bandits expected, catching them off guard. The sound of clattering wood echoed through the air, a cacophony of chaos that sent the bandits reeling. "Hey!" one of them shouted, stumbling backward into the dirt. That unexpected chaos spread like wildfire. Nathan seized the moment, dropping down onto the ground, landing silently in a crouched position. The element of surprise was on his side, and the confusion among the bandits was thick. He declared, stepping into view, gripping a sturdy pitchfork. Fear flashed in the bandits' eyes. They hadn't expected a confrontation. Nathan's heart pounded wildly, but he felt a surge of power. He wasn't just defending his land, he was reclaiming his dignity as a man who had worked tirelessly for every inch of soil he stood on. The leader yelled, visibly shaken, but before they could retreat, Nathan charged forward, catching the closest bandit by the arm. He yanked him back, using the pitchfork to keep the others at bay. Nathan said, his voice unwavering, "You wanted to steal from me." The bandit struggled, but Nathan had the advantage, driving fear deep into the man's psyche. In that instant, he was the embodiment of every farmer standing against the encroaching shadows of greed and despair. The bandit leader, however, was desperate. "We didn't mean any harm," he pleaded, attempting to back away. Nathan shot back, lunging at the second bandit who had hesitated. With swift movements, Nathan managed to ensnare him with rope, wrestling him to the ground. The reality of the situation hit the remaining bandit hard. He shouted to his accomplices, panic rising in his voice. With the dawn creeping closer, Nathan's adrenaline only heightened. The remaining bandits, realizing their plan had unraveled, decided to make a run for it. They screamed in panic, but Nathan had already anticipated this move. Nathan yelled, and with a swift kick he sent another barrel rolling toward them, blocking their escape route. The bandits collided and fell, the surprise sending them sprawling once more. Nathan approached, determination etched on his face. "Maybe this will teach you a lesson about respect," he declared. The fear in the bandits' eyes was unmistakable, a mixture of terror and the growing realization that they had chosen the wrong target. Tension hung heavy in the air. Nathan could feel it coil around him as the bandits scrambled to regain their footing. But he had the upper hand, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. His heart pounded as he glanced at the sunset, praying for the wisdom to navigate this dangerous moment. The leader gasped, trying to negotiate. "I want you to leave and never return," Nathan replied, his voice steady, cutting through the chaos. The bandits exchanged glances, their bravado evaporating under Nathan's watchful gaze. They had expected someone mild and meek, but here stood a farmer who had faced down danger and emerged stronger than ever before. With a deep breath, Nathan prepared to let them go. It was risky, but it was also the right thing to do. "If I ever see you near my land again, things will not go so well for you," he warned. "If you walk away from this now, remember my name," the leader spat, fear giving way to a desperate defiance. Nathan took a step back, maintaining his composure, eyes locked on them. "You've shown me who you are." And with that, he stepped aside, granting the bandits an escape they hadn't expected. As they ran, Nathan felt a mix of relief and empowerment wash over him. He watched as they receded into the distance, becoming mere shadows against the fading light. When dawn finally broke, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Nathan breathed deeply, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. He had met danger head-on. He had faced fear and turned it to his advantage. Days turned into weeks, but that encounter shifted something deep within him. He poured his energy into the following harvest season, but he didn't do it alone. He reached out to fellow farmers who had heard the tale of the night a band of bandits tried to take from him and failed. As he shared his story, more and more farmers began gathering around Nathan, and a camaraderie began to blossom. Together, they built a network not only to defend their fields from future attacks, but also to exchange ideas and resources, a community united against common threats. In that gathering, he realized something profound. The true strength of a farmer lies not just in the soil, but in the spirit of cooperation. They had fought against fear and found solace in their shared struggles. Together, they were unbreakable. The seasons changed, and with each harvest, Nathan could feel the weight of that first encounter slip further into the past. The fields thrived under collective care. Families grew closer, and dreams, once chipped away by fear, began to flourish once more. Every time he saw the sun dip low beyond the horizon, he remembered that moment, the encounter that had transformed his life, not just as a farmer, but as a man of courage and resilience. He had outsmarted those who thought they could take whatever they desired. The community thrived, cutting a path toward a future filled with hope, all because one farmer had the courage to stand firm against the shadows that threatened to envelop him. Each day they worked together, weaving their individual strengths into a tapestry of defiance against those who would seek to take instead of grow. And in those fields, amidst the wind whispering through the golden wheat, Nathan Reed found not just his farm, but his purpose, a legacy that would inspire generations to plant their own seeds of hope and stand up for what was right. The bandits may have tried to corner the farmer, but they found that true power lies in resilience, unity, and the relentless spirit of a man who wouldn't back down. The sky darkened rapidly as storm clouds rolled in, a thick curtain of gray sweeping over the countryside. Nathan Reed stood at the edge of his sprawling wheat field, feeling the tension crackle in the air like static electricity. Harvest time was just around the corner, and his hard work was about to pay off. But tonight, the ominous feeling in the pit of his stomach warned him something was off. He looked towards the horizon, heart pounding, as shadows blended into the landscape and whispers of danger began to swirl around him, cutting through the stillness of the evening. Just as the first raindrops began to fall, he heard the unmistakable sound of boots crunching over gravel, 3 figures moving stealthily through the weeds. Bandits. He instinctively dropped lower behind a thick oak tree, his heart racing. He had heard stories, tales of farmers losing everything, their livelihoods stolen, lives disrupted by ruthless bandits who thought they could take whatever they wanted. He felt a pulse of fear, but underneath it, something stronger began to build, a fierce determination. One of the bandits growled, his voice harsh. Nathan peered out from behind the tree, his eyes narrowing. He could see the glint of metal in their hands, knives and crude weapons meant for intimidation. It ignited a fire within him. They thought they could just waltz into his life, into his hard-earned work, and take what didn't belong to them. No, this was his land and he would defend it. Quietly, he crept back towards the barn, his fortress and his sanctuary. It was a small building, worn by time but sturdy, filled with tools and supplies that could turn the tides of this confrontation. His mind whirred with possibilities. He needed a plan, something that would outsmart these intruders rather than face them head-on. After all, bandits thrived on fear, but get them off balance, send them reeling. That would make all the difference. His heart raced as he rummaged through the barn, gathering tools. Ropes, barrels, and an old fishing net he hadn't used in years. A plan formed in his mind as he set to work, urgency driving him. He moved like lightning, heart pounding as he positioned the barrels strategically along the narrow path where the bandits had entered. It would create a barrier, and the fishing net. It would be his secret weapon, a trap ready to ensnare the unsuspecting. He bolted up to the roof of the barn, a perfect vantage point. The rain began to pick up, pouring down in sheets, creating a rhythmic backdrop. Nathan crouched low, eyes glued to the bandits as they advanced toward the golden sea of wheat. They were so close now, their voices a cruel laugh in the storm, a sound that only fueled his resolve. Just a little longer, he whispered to himself, every sinew in his body coiled with tension. He watched as they reached the barrels, the leader giving a nod of affirmation. Nathan had to act. He kicked one of the barrels, and with surprising force, it rolled toward the bandits, crashing into them with a loud thud. One of the bandits yelped, stumbling backward, confusion flooding the air. Now was his moment. As they scrambled to regain their balance, Nathan leaped from his perch on the barn roof. He landed in a crouch, his pitchfork raised high, eyes blazing. He shouted, voice echoing through the darkened fields like a thunderclap. The bandits froze, shock overtaking their arrogance. Uncertainty crept into their expressions as they faced a farmer who wouldn't cower. Nathan charged forward, aim steadied on the first one, who fumbled for a weapon. With quick and powerful momentum, he lunged, thrusting the pitchfork toward the ground as a warning. Step back. Nathan's heart thundered in his chest, adrenaline coursing through his veins. The leader's bravado flickered for the first time, eyes wide with fear. Relax, man, he stammered, raising his hands in a feeble attempt at diplomacy. Nathan roared, taking a step forward. The second bandit regained his composure, eyes swirling with reckless anger. He shouted, desperation lacing his words, but Nathan was ready. He swiftly grabbed the fishing net, flinging it at the next bandit. It landed perfectly, ensnaring him like a trapped animal. Nathan shouted, the thrill of victory blooming inside him. Realizing that chaos had descended, the third bandit turned to run, but Nathan wasn't done. With a swift kick, he sent another barrel rolling toward him. It crashed loudly against the dirt, blocking his escape route. Panic flashed in his eyes. Nathan yelled, voice firm, commanding. The bandits were cornered, and as dawn broke over the horizon, the first rays of light illuminated the chaos around them. Nathan stood triumphant, but this battle wasn't over. He didn't want to just chase them away. He wanted to instill fear of the consequences of their actions. The leader spat, rage boiling beneath the surface. Because you've made mistakes, Nathan answered, driving the lesson home. You think you can take from others and not face the consequences. But here's a lesson for you. This land, this work, it's all about respect. The bandits exchanged glances, their anger slowly giving way to uncertainty. In that moment, Nathan saw doubt creeping into their hardened faces. He realized that sometimes the best weapon was not brute strength, but words that struck deep. The leader gulped, eyes lowering. Maybe he stammered, trying to regain some control. Nathan stepped closer, still gripping his pitchfork. You listen to me. You leave here, out of my sight, and you'll have a second chance. With that looming truth in the air, the bandits slowly gathered themselves, realizing they had no choice. They scrambled away, disappearing into the tree line as quickly as they had arrived. The fear of their encounter hung thick like the morning mist. Breathing heavily, Nathan watched them vanish, a powerful mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration washing over him. He had faced the storm and emerged not just unscathed, but fierce. This was his land, his labor, and against all odds, he had defended both. Days turned into weeks after that night, but the embers of the confrontation glowed brightly within him. Word spread through the small farming community about the farmer who outsmarted bandits, facing them down and teaching them a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. Farmers began to gather not just for safety, but for inspiration. They started to realize that they were stronger together, sharing knowledge, tools, and stories. Nathan organized meetings, bringing together the farmers from nearby. They spoke about best practices in farming, weather management, and even self-defense. They forged a bond that fortified their spirits. It wasn't merely about protecting their crops anymore. It was about building a community, a network of solidarity against those who would threaten them. As Nathan shared his story, he couldn't help but notice the spark kindling within himself, igniting hope and forging connections. Each time he saw his fellow farmers' faces light up, he felt a profound sense of purpose, no longer just defending against threats, but actively creating something greater together. Months passed, and the harvest season loomed on the horizon once again. The crops stood tall and golden, promising bountiful rewards for their hard work. And as the sky began to turn a brilliant orange with the setting sun, Nathan realized that the storm they had faced was not just a physical threat, but a catalyst for change. Many farmers who had once worried about the future began working together, combining their resources and sharing in the harvest. They created a co-op, pooling their yields to sell at the market, creating a sense of community that thrived on cooperation rather than fear. But echoes of that initial encounter lingered. They all knew the bandits could return. They could lurk in the shadows again, hoping to find a moment of weakness among the farmers. Nathan's resolve hardened further. They wouldn't just wait for another attack. They would be prepared, vigilant against threats both seen and unseen. With great care, Nathan taught the community how to protect their land, building simple defensive structures around the perimeters of the farms. They would stand guard together, side by side, learning to read the signs of danger and protect what they'd earned through blood, sweat, and tears. Finally, one crisp morning, as they worked together preparing for the harvest, they spotted movement at the edge of the woods. The unmistakable silhouettes emerged, those same bandits from before, lurking just beyond the reach of the golden fields. Nathan felt a rush of adrenaline grip him. This was it, the moment he had anticipated. But this time he wasn't facing the threat alone. He glanced around at the farmers gathered beside him, their eyes fierce, ready to stand their ground. The leader of the bandits stepped forward, that same arrogance lingering, but it was a different situation now. Hundreds of years of farming knowledge and unity surged through each farmer there. Nathan called out, raising a hand to silence the panic that washed through the group. As they faced each other, Nathan felt a strange calmness wash over him. He didn't need to act out of fear. He had fought not just for himself, but for a community that had erupted in solidarity against a common threat. The land sang with life and strength. The bandits hesitated, the bond of community rendering their bravado ineffective. The fear they instilled in others bent back toward themselves. Nathan took a step forward, voice low but firm. "You think you can walk in and take from me?" With a collective breath, the farmers behind him lined up, standing tall and resolute. Together, they formed a barrier, a wall of strength that sent a significant message. The bandits recoiled, their eyes widening in disbelief. And with that, Nathan knew they would retreat, they would be driven away, and they would never return. And just like that, the bandits turned and fled, disappearing into the cover of the trees, leaving behind whispers of defeat. Nathan stood there, breathless, surrounded by his allies. They had forged not just a defense, but an indomitable spirit. In that moment, he realized that the true power of a farmer didn't just lie in the land they tilled, but in the bonds they strengthened and the communities they built. They dared to dream of a future free of threats, a future shaped by resilience and unity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the fields in a warm, golden glow, Nathan looked around at his friends, farmers, defenders, a family. They had faced the storm, outsmarted the darkness, and emerged victorious. The land flourished, alive with the promise of hope for generations to come. There would be no more fear, just strength, together, always. The night was darker than usual, the kind of deep black that seems to swallow all sound, leaving only a heavy silence. Nathan Reed wiped the sweat from his brow, glancing toward the distant hills where his farm lay bathed in the eerie glow of the moonlight. The air smelled of damp earth and fresh crops, but unease lurked beneath the surface. He had heard stories of bandits haunting the periphery of their small community, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Just as he tightened his grip on the shovel, the rustle of branches snapped him to attention. He felt that cold shiver crawl up his spine. Was he truly alone out here? Something wasn't right. He tilted his head slightly, straining to hear more, heart pounding in time with the rising dread. Then, just beyond the twisted oak trees that bordered his property, he saw them three figures moving like shadows under the moonlight. "Let's hit the wheat field," one of them murmured, a hint of eagerness in his voice that made Nathan's stomach churn. They intended to steal from him, right here, right now. Fear mixed with anger. This was his livelihood, a land that had been nurtured through hard work and late nights. The thought of losing everything he had planted flickered like wildfire in his mind. He couldn't let that happen, not here, not now. As he stepped back trying to remain unseen, Nathan's mind raced. He had to act quickly and wisely. Charging into danger would invite chaos, and he couldn't afford that. These bandits had more strength, more numbers, but he had something they didn't: knowledge of his land and the spirit of a farmer unwilling to cower. He would outsmart them. A plan began to form. Nathan hurried back to his barn, the wooden slats creaking beneath him as he moved. He gathered an array of supplies: ropes, barrels, and an old fishing net that had seen better days. No time to waste. Calmly, he calculated each step as he set up a trap along the edge of his field. Now, with the moon as his only witness, he quietly nestled himself into the shadows of the barn, peering through a small opening. He had positioned the barrels near a narrow passage, creating an artificial barrier that would give him the upper hand. The bandits would come. It was only a matter of time before their greed drove them forward. One bandit called out, laughter echoing through the darkness. Nathan gritted his teeth, fighting the impulse to rush out and confront them. Observing their movements carefully, he waited for the right moment. They were overconfident, believing that no one was around to stop them. The lead bandit gestured toward the wheat, eyes gleaming. Nathan took a deep breath, steadying himself. That greed would be their downfall. Then, just as they moved closer to the barrels, he felt the moment brewing. With a swift pivot, Nathan threw a handful of rocks to the other side of the field. The sound startled the bandits, and they turned, looking confused, unsure of what they had heard. Nathan shouted, bursting out from his hiding place. With the element of surprise on his side, he charged toward them like a tempest, a farmer who had been pushed too far. The sight of him startled the bandits, and they faltered, eyes wide with disbelief. But Nathan didn't wait. He kicked the nearest barrel toward the closest bandit. With a powerful crash, it rolled into him, knocking him to the ground. Nathan's heart raced as adrenaline surged through him. The bandits were disoriented, stumbling over their fallen comrade. Nathan called, raising his makeshift weapon, a pitchfork he had grabbed in haste. Fear flashed in the eyes of the two remaining bandits as they scrambled to regroup. "Hold on," the leader warned, a tremor of uncertainty creeping into his voice. "Too late for that," Nathan replied, eyes glinting like steel. Just then, the second bandit lunged at him, a wild swing aimed at Nathan's side. But after years of working his fields, Nathan moved fluidly. He ducked, countering with a swift jab of the pitchfork. Landed with a thud against the ground close enough to warn. The bandit gasped, stepping back in trepidation. In that brief moment of hesitation, Nathan seized the advantage. "You think you can threaten me?" Before they could react, Nathan tossed the fishing net over the second bandit, ensnaring him like a caught fish. The banter among the bandits faded, replaced by fear. The leader, vulnerability creeping in, began to retreat, glancing back at his comrades who were now trapped in a web of their own making. He shouted, raising his hands in surrender. Nathan studied him, adrenaline still coursing, but clarity began to settle in. He could end this confrontation right now. Nathan asked, his voice steady but unforgiving. The fluttering of uncertainty danced in the eyes of the leader. "Because we didn't mean any harm," he pleaded, desperation thick in his voice. Nathan tightened his grip on the pitchfork, weighing his options. There was a tense silence as the others struggled against their binds, but he saw something flicker in the leader's eyes, a glimmer of truth perhaps, but also the fear of failure. "All you had to do was ask for work," Nathan said, slow and deliberate, letting his words sink in. The leader hesitated, scanning the faces of his comrades. They looked battered and defeated. Nathan could see the shift happening. the realization that they had underestimated him, the simple farmer who had held his ground. "I'll give you a chance," Nathan continued, his heart pounding. "Leave now and remember this lesson." With uncertain nods, the bandits gathered what little dignity they had left. The leader turned to Nathan, eyes still wide with disbelief. "We'll remember. Thank you," he muttered, the fight stolen from his voice. And just like that, the bandits retreated, disappearing into the shadows of the trees. Nathan exhaled deeply, shoulders relaxing for the first time since the encounter began. He had stood his ground and emerged victorious, not through violence, but through strategy and the sheer will to protect what was rightfully his. Weeks passed, and the tale of Nathan's bravery spread like wildfire. His fellow farmers, once anxious about the nearby bandits, turned to him for guidance. They gathered in his barn, drawn together by the solidarity of shared resources and wisdom. The fear that once gripped their hearts began to fade, replaced by a sense of community and resilience. They learned to come together, to fend off not just the bandits but the very notion that they had to work in isolation. Nathan had opened their eyes to the strength that lay in unity. One afternoon, as the sun beamed brightly over the fields, the farmers crafted a plan to collaborate. They organized a network of watches, ensuring someone would always keep an eye on the land while others gathered crops or repaired fences. It was an invigorating change. A newfound sense of hope surged through the community. With Nathan as a pillar of strength, they began to share not only resources but also stories of perseverance. They learned from one another, forming bonds stronger than the soil beneath their feet. But just as the crops flourished under the summer sunlight, rumors began to swirl once more. Word came that the bandits were approaching again, emboldened by the whispers of Nathan's generous mistake. This time they aimed to take back the pride they had lost. As evening settled in, Nathan gathered his fellow farmers once more. "We'll face them together," he declared, voice steady and resolute. With renewed courage, they devised a plan. A defensive perimeter would stretch around the farms, a network of support that would ensure they would not be vulnerable again. They set makeshift traps, barrels, nets, anything they could find to protect the land. That night, just as a full moon rose high in the sky, Nathan stood watch, confident but alert. The farmers positioned themselves strategically, ready to defend what they had built together. The bandits emerged from the woods, confidently striding toward the edge of the fields. But this time, instead of fear, Nathan felt a rush of adrenaline. He knew he wasn't alone. He whispered to his closest friend, a fellow farmer named Daniel, who stood by his side, hands gripping a sturdy hoe. "Always," Daniel replied, a determined spark in his eyes. As the bandits approached, Nathan bellowed, "You want to fight?" His voice echoed through the night, each word like a thunderclap. Caught off guard, the bandits hesitated, scanning the darkness. And in that moment of uncertainty, the farmers emerged, stepping into the moonlight, organized and steadfast. Nathan raised the pitchfork once more, calling out, "You tried to take what's ours before, thinking we wouldn't fight back." Chaos erupted as the bandits scrambled to regroup, but the farmers were ready. They didn't back down, they held their ground, forming a solid wall of resilience as they employed their traps with precision. Nathan watched in awe as his friends fought side by side, protecting each other, supporting one another. Fear turned to courage, and every blow landed felt like a declaration of purpose. The bandits began to falter, realizing their mistake. As they turned to flee, Nathan called after them, "This is your final warning." In that moment of triumph, together they had forged something unbreakable. Nathan stood taller, a sense of pride washing over him, not just for himself but for his fellow farmers, the community that had thrived despite hardship. As dawn broke, casting soft light over their battered fields, they stood shoulder to shoulder, battered but unbroken. Their hearts raced with victory, and a sense of hope filled the air. They had shown the bandits that they were no longer isolated or fearful. They were a network built on trust, strength, and resilience. After that night, stories began to echo through the region of the farmers who had banded together, standing strong against those who tried to take from them. Nathan became a beacon of hope, inspiring others to join their efforts, forming a community that looked out for one another. Ultimately, the spirit of a farmer had thrived. standing unwavering against the storms that threatened to engulf them. Nathan had proven that while bandits may try to corner a farmer, the true power lay in unity, courage, and the indomitable will to protect what was rightfully theirs. And so, as seasons turned, the golden wheat danced gently in the breeze, a lasting testament to community, resilience, and a fierce determination to never back down again. Together, they fortified their legacy not as solitary farmers, but as a family grounded in the land. The bandits would never know the strength they ignited, nor the stories that would bloom from fear into fierce camaraderie. In the heart of that community, hope flourished anew, a promise that rang true for generations to come. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the sprawling fields of wheat. Nathan Reed worked tirelessly, his hands worn from the years spent tilling the land. Every inch of this field felt like a part of his soul, nurtured with hard work and sweat. But as the shadows lengthened, a ripple of unease crept over him. Whispers in the village told tales of bandits brazen enough to attack farmers like him, seeking to take what didn't belong to them. And that chilling thought crept into Nathan's mind. He wiped the sweat from his brow, glancing toward the tree line beyond his property. A sudden crack of a twig shattered the stillness, snapping his focus to the horizon. Through the dense foliage, he spotted movement, three figures, dark and brooding against the backdrop of the setting sun. Nathan's heart raced. Bandits. He could feel the weight of dread settle on his chest as he grasped the handle of his shovel tighter. As the figures ventured closer, he could hear their coarse laughter cutting through the air. "This place doesn't look guarded at all," one of them scoffed. Nathan's mind spun with thoughts of everything he had worked for, the crops he had tended with unwavering dedication, the dreams he had nurtured like the very soil beneath his feet. They were about to take that away. He dropped to the ground, pressing his back against the earth to listen. The leader, taller than the rest, gestured towards the field. "Grab what we can carry." They thought they could just waltz in and take from him, didn't they? Anger ignited inside Nathan, burning away his fear. He had to act and quickly. This wasn't just about defending his property. It was about standing his ground, about showing that he wasn't a man to be pushed around. Quietly, he slipped back to his barn, heart pounding in his chest. He rummaged through the tools, his father's old rifle, barrels left over from harvests past, and an assortment of ropes. He needed to outsmart them, to turn the tables. Nathan was no ordinary farmer. He was resourceful. He took a deep breath, focusing on the plan forming in his mind. After gathering the tools, he moved carefully, positioning 2 barrels strategically along the path leading to his crops. He placed a heavy net nearby, a trap waiting to spring into action. Completing his preparations, Nathan climbed to the roof of the barn, gaining a higher vantage point over the scene unfolding below. With the fading light, he could see the bandits approaching closer, their greedy eyes scanning the field. They called back to one another, laughter bubbling over their shared excitement. They were unaware, blissfully confident in their superiority. Nathan steadied his breath. Timing was everything. Just as the bandits reached the barrels, he shoved one with all his might. The wood crashed loudly, sending the bandits scrambling to steady themselves. One of them shouted, and in that moment of chaos, Nathan leaped from the roof, landing with a thud among the tall grass. He bellowed, his voice booming across the field, laced with a fierce confidence that surprised even him. The bandits turned, shock written all over their faces as they watched the lone farmer stand defiantly before them. Nathan gripped his pitchfork tightly. A plan had formed in his mind, and it was time to execute it. The bandits hesitated, caught between their initial bravado and the realization that they were facing someone who wouldn't back down. Shouted the leader, but Nathan was faster. He lunged at the first bandit, striking the ground in front of him, forcing him back with a well-aimed thrust of the pitchfork. Nathan shouted, eyes sharp and unyielding. In that moment, the bandits reacted instinctively, fear gripping them harder than any weapon. They were caught off guard, not expecting resistance from a farmer. One bandit lunged at Nathan, swinging wildly, but Nathan dodged, moving lithely as he had learned from years of working the land. He swung at the man with the pitchfork, forcing him to stumble backward. Nathan pressed the advantage, shouting commands to the onlookers out of fear he might be overrun. "Get ready." With that, he pulled the net from the ground, flinging it at the second bandit. It landed perfectly, entangling him in a web of rope and desperation. "Help!" The bandit cried, panic etched into his features. His fear painted a picture that caused the leader's bravado to falter. But Nathan wasn't done yet. With fierce determination, he moved toward the leader, who was now backing away quickly, eyes darting between his captured friend and this unyielding farmer. Nathan's voice boomed as he took a step forward, the pitchfork poised to strike. The leader raised his arms, panic overtaking him. Wait, we didn't mean any harm." Nathan interrupted, cutting through the man's pleas. "To steal from me, to take the fruits of years of hard work." For a moment, time hung suspended in the air as they faced each other, two figures locked in a battle of wills. Nathan felt the weight of the world crash down around him. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was a stand against the fragile nature of dreams, his dream, hanging delicately in the balance. With sudden speed, the leader turned to flee, but Nathan was faster. He lunged, grabbing the man's collar and yanking him back. "You think you can just run away?" The bandit struggled, but Nathan was unyielding, the adrenaline fueling his resolve. They locked eyes, and in that intense moment, Nathan saw fear wash over the man's face. He choked out. "I want you to remember this night," Nathan growled, tightening his grip. "You're leaving here with a lesson learned. If you ever think of coming back, think twice." With that, he shoved the bandit away, watching as they all scrambled to regroup. "Get out!" The remaining bandits rushed toward the trees, their bravado shattered, leaving behind the echoes of their bravado replaced by the sharp realization that they had lost this battle. Nathan stood tall, breathing heavily yet filled with a fierce sense of victory. He had protected his land, his home, proving to himself that he wouldn't be easily broken. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting a warm light on the battlefield, Nathan knew he had faced something truly formidable. But he did more than defend. He had outsmarted them, turning their attack into a statement. In that moment, he understood that the heart of a farmer doesn't lie solely in the crops he nurtures, but in the spirit that fights to defend them. Word of Nathan's bold stand spread quickly through the village. Fellow farmers sought him out, their eyes wide with admiration. They wanted to hear about the brave farmer who had dared to confront bandits, who had turned the tides without raising unnecessary violence. Soon, they were standing together, shared stories connecting them as the foundation of new alliances began to form. As the weeks rolled on, Nathan's farm thrived under the attention and partnership of the others in the community. They began watching out for each other, pooling resources and ideas. Every farmer before had focused solely on their own plot, but now, the idea of a united front began to take root. Nathan organized meetings filled with heartening discussions, a strategy to protect their land, a testament of strength against potential threats. They transformed not just into farmers, but into a community willing to stand together, defending their dreams side by side. Through those gatherings, they discussed everything from crop rotation to security measures. Nathan became a pillar in this newfound unity, guiding and assisting where he could, his bravery blossoming into leadership. Days turned into months, and the harvest season approached once more, ripe with promise. The farmers began preparing for the bounty, but Nathan never let the reality of their victory fade. Vigilance was key. Even as they celebrated their newfound connection, the stories of bandits continued to linger in the back of their minds. Then, one particularly crisp autumn evening, reports came rushing into the village. The bandits were spotted again, more emboldened than before. The thought sent chills down Nathan's spine, but this time his resolve was unshakable. He gathered the farmers, their faces determined and ready. "We've faced them once and we can do it again," Nathan declared, his voice strong. "But this time, we stand together." As dusk settled, Nathan and the farmers organized, crafting a defensive perimeter around the fields, a network of plans, traps, and communication. The camaraderie sparked a renewed strength, invigorating and vibrant against the looming threat. The night arrived, cloaked in shadows as they took their places. The full moon cast a bright glow over the land, illuminating their resolve. Nathan felt pride swell in his heart, surrounded by determined faces standing ready to protect not just the land, but one another. When the bandits arrived, striding confidently into the light, they found the farmers waiting, united and unyielding. Nathan shouted, raising his pitchfork above his head. Caught off guard, the bandits hesitated, and in that brief moment the farmers surged forward, pressing as one. All the fear that had once haunted them now transformed into fearless purpose. "This is what happens when you underestimate us," Nathan countered as he led the charge. Confident now, the farmers worked like a well-oiled machine, employing every trick and trap they had set just for this moment. Chaos erupted as the bandits scrambled to escape, confusion swirling around them. But Nathan was relentless. Each farmer stood firm, unafraid, forcing the intruders back towards the woods from which they had come. The remaining bandits fled, a rush of sheer panic fueling their retreat. As they vanished into the night, the farmers erupted into cheers, boundless joy filling the air. Under the moonlit sky, they stood together, defenders of their dreams, protectors of their community. They had done more than just fend off a threat. They had forged a bond that would not easily break. Months turned into years, and the spirit of bravery fueled the heartbeat of their village. The tales turned into legend stories of the night the bandits tried to corner the farmer, and found not just a man but an unstoppable community ready to defend the life they built together. Through it all, Nathan learned that strength exists not just in the earth beneath his feet, but in the connections that blossomed among his fellow farmers. Together, they became a force to be reckoned with, proving that fear could fuel resilience, that dreams can flourish when nurtured by the spirit of unity. And as the sun set on that resilient farm, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, Nathan smiled, feeling anchored in the knowledge that they were prepared for whatever storms may come, and ready to face them together. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm orange glow over the sprawling fields of Nathan Reed's farm. Each golden wheat stalk swayed gently in the evening breeze, resembling an ocean of shimmering treasures under the fading light. Nathan stood at the edge of his land, a sturdy farmer with rough hands and a hard-earned spirit. It was a good day for a long day's toil, but within him, an unsettling feeling began to lurch. Something wasn't right. Whispers had drifted through the village over the past week, rumors of bandits lurking just beyond the borders of their peaceful community. As the shadows lengthened, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was imminent. He glanced towards the dense woods bordering his property, anticipation curling in his stomach like a coiled spring. Then he heard it, a faint crackle of branches snapping and hushed voices murmuring just beyond his field. Nathan's heart raced. He stepped back, pressing himself against the rough bark of an old oak tree, his breath catching in his throat. 3 figures emerged from the shadows, moving cautiously but purposefully toward his crops. Their ragged clothes and weathered faces told a story of desperation fueled by greed. "Grab what you can," one of them hissed. Fear ignited within Nathan, but it quickly morphed into a steely resolve. His land meant everything to him, the long hours spent tilling the earth, the dreams woven into every seed he planted. He couldn't let them take what was his. They thought they could just stroll in and claim his labor as their own, not if he had anything to say about it. Nathan's mind raced as he formulated a plan. With careful steps, he retreated toward his barn, the wooden planks creaking under his weight, nearly drowning out the sounds of the bandits as they tread closer to his precious fields. Inside, he gathered tools, the old pitchfork, a few heavy barrels, and some rope left over from last season's harvest. He moved quickly, his heart thumping like a war drum. In his mind, the strategy took shape. He carefully rolled the barrels into place along the narrow path leading to his crops, creating a makeshift barricade. A net, once useful for fishing, would act as the final trap. He climbed onto the barn roof, watching the bandits approach from above, his pulse quickening with each passing moment. The leader, a burly man with a scar running across his cheek, smirked at his companions. This should be easy. Nathan felt the weight of that arrogance, a spark of fury ignited within him. They assumed the farm was an easy mark, a target ripe for plundering. But Nathan had been forged by years of hard labor and determination. He wouldn't be a victim. The bandits drew dangerously close to the barrels, laughter spilling out into the night. Their confidence shimmered like the moonlight dancing over the wheat, and it infuriated him. Now, Nathan whispered to himself, gripping his pitchfork tightly. He took a deep breath and leaped off the roof, landing softly among the tall grass. Nathan bellowed, his voice echoing across the field, startling the bandits into silence. They turned, eyes wide with confusion as they faced the sturdy farmer standing defiantly before them. They hadn't expected this. The scarred leader blinked, a mixture of surprise and hesitation washing over his face. "What are you doing?" Nathan felt a rush of adrenaline surge through him. One man, yes. In one swift motion, he charged forward, pitchfork raised, catching the first bandit off guard. The man stumbled back with a yelp, tripping over the barrier of barrels Nathan had placed just moments earlier. Panic swept through the others as they watched their companion crash to the ground. The leader shouted, eyes narrowing with fury, yet uncertainty flickering beneath the bravado. Nathan didn't flinch. This was his moment. He pivoted, using the pitchfork with precision, striking the wooden frame of one of the barrels, sending it rolling right into the second bandit, who tumbled backward, crashing hard against the earth. The third bandit hesitated, fear finally replacing the greed that had driven them here, and Nathan's heart swelled with a sense of power. "You thought you could just take whatever you wanted," he shouted, advancing slowly, a predator closing in on prey. The leader cried, panic clawing at his voice. Nathan retorted, advancing with fire in his eyes. Just then, the net flew through the air, catching the leader off guard and snaring him with a fateful thud. He fell backward in a tangle of ropes, yelping in surprise. Nathan leaped closer, positioning the pitchfork firmly, breathing heavily, adrenaline surging through him. "Now you're trapped," Nathan said, his voice steady. The leader glared, struggling against his bindings. "We were just trying to survive." A flicker of sympathy pierced Nathan's heart, yet he stood firm. There are better ways to survive than by stealing from others. The bandit struggled, but determination filled Nathan. He had faced trials before, droughts, storms, and pests threatening to destroy his crops. He wouldn't let three desperate men take everything he worked for. Just as Nathan was about to declare the consequences of their actions, the first bandit, who had been nursing an injured leg, rose slowly, eyes wild with desperation. He pleaded, "We just..." In that moment, Nathan felt a pang of reality. Desperation could twist a man, but it didn't justify choosing to be the predator rather than the prey. He focused on the tangled mess of the bandits before him, their faces drawn tight with fear, but also a twinge of regret. "I'll give you a chance," Nathan said, voice softening slightly. "Leave now and don't come back, but remember this, there's dignity in hard work. You can rebuild, you can ask for help." "I can," Nathan replied, a strength in his voice. "But take this lesson to heart." Slowly, as if realizing their chance was fading, the bandits nodded. With hurried movements, they gathered their fallen comrade, the leader finally stilling in defeat. "You'll regret this," he hissed as they retreated into the shadows of the trees, leaving behind an aura of fear and confusion. Breathing heavily, Nathan stood in the aftermath of the confrontation, heart racing. He realized the night was more than just a battle, it was a declaration of resilience. He wasn't just a farmer, he was a protector, a warrior for his land and his dreams. As dawn broke, illuminating his fields in brilliant light, Nathan felt a sense of victory wash over him. He had faced down danger, but the experience galvanized something deeper inside him. He couldn't keep doing this alone. Word of his encounter spread through the village quickly. Farmers would come seeking Nathan's advice, admiration shining in their eyes as they wanted to learn how he stood his ground. Promising murmurs of hope intertwined with the stories that swept through their small community, tales of unity, strength, and perseverance. Weeks passed, and Nathan took his newfound role seriously. He organized meetings, inviting fellow farmers to share ideas and strategies about self-defense and community. They began crafting a network, forming connections that had been absent among them before. The safety of each farm now intertwined with the collective spirit of the village. This was their land, and they would stand together against any threat. As summer rolled in, crops stood tall, promising bountiful harvests. Yet whispers of bandits continued to echo in the back of their minds. Nathan kept vigilant, instilling a sense of preparedness in everyone. They couldn't take another attack lightly. They would be ready. One clear night, with the stars shimmering overhead, Nathan and the other farmers gathered around a campfire, sharing stories and laughter. The sound of camaraderie filled the air, pushing away the lingering traces of fear brought on by their previous encounter. But the laughter was abruptly silenced when a rustle pierced the silence of the night. The hairs on the back of Nathan's neck stood up as he turned, scanning the darkness. Shadows moved at the edge of the woods, shadows that seemed all too familiar. He felt the collective tension build among his fellow farmers. Faces of determination shifted to fear as the realization of danger loomed once again. The bandits were back. With a surge of adrenaline, Nathan stood taller, heart racing with purpose. He commanded, locking eyes with his allies. Their expressions reflected both anxiety and resolve. As the bandits emerged once more, Nathan felt a powerful sense of déjà vu wash over him. This time they were not backed by naivety. They were fueled by anger and desperation. The leader, scarred and furious, glared at Nathan, resentment burning in his eyes. He snarled. As tension hung heavy in the air, Nathan realized that this wasn't just a fight for his land anymore. It was a battle for every farmer who had ever faced adversity, every humble worker who didn't deserve to be threatened. This was a showdown of spirit, a clash between those who took and those who gave. "Together we're stronger," Nathan shouted, his voice rising above the tension. Farmers rallied behind him, forming a protective line as they prepared to defend their dreams. As the first bandit lunged forward, Nathan took a step back, eyes focused and steady. He had done this once, now he would do it again. But this time, he wouldn't just protect his crops, he would protect his community. The night would become a battleground of wills and courage. And as the shadows advanced, Nathan Reed stood defiantly, clutching his pitchfork, ready to face the storm that brewed on the horizon, ready to prove that the heart of a farmer runs deep, and the power of unity could withstand any force that sought to tear it apart. But little did he know, the next challenge would test not just his courage, but also the very ties that bound their livelihoods together.